Well, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Look, firstly, what do you make of these new pieces of legislation which are coming in, which would mean longer times in prison, the police allowed to search people for things like bike locks and glue, etc., and basically be able to act more swiftly?
Well, it's a response by the government to some of the more disruptive protests that we've seen in recent years, particularly from groups like Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion, who've not only protested on behalf of their cause, but also caused massive disruption, both to the highways, to critical national infrastructure, and are creating more of a sort of public nuisance. And I think, Patrick, frankly, the public are a bit fed up with it as well. And I think that these slightly tougher measures in the Public Order Act that have been agreed this week will probably be welcomed by the majority of people in this country.
Yeah, they absolutely will. I tell you who they'll also be welcomed by: the police, because the police were getting sick and tired of, frankly, people like me say, why can't you do more to stop these slow-walking, orange-clad numpties from bringing cities to a halt and gluing themselves to everything? And the police were basically saying, look, we're doing everything that's in our power. We can't do any more. We can't just behave illegally. Well, now, thanks to this Public Order Act, they might actually be able to step in and do something quicker.
Yes, because the police were taking people away, but they weren't able to arrest them formally. They weren't able to charge them. And so these people were just released. And as you say, they're chaining themselves to railings. They're gluing themselves to the pavement. And although, of course, it's right in a democracy like ours that people should be able to protest and protest loudly for their cause, they shouldn't be causing a major nuisance both to the public and also costing the taxpayer huge amounts of money. I think the police have spent millions of pounds policing Just Stop Oil, for instance. So I think this is right to tighten this legislation, and I think the balance that's been reached in Parliament is probably about right.
Yeah, and like I said, it does mean that police will be allowed to act a little bit more proactively, so they will be able to search people who they suspect are actually going to be in possession of things like bike locks, etc., and also additional powers of arrest for people and longer prison sentences as well for people who actually chain themselves to things. So up to 12 months in prison and an unlimited fine for protesters who block roads. And the thinking there will clearly be that it means that they can get them on a repeat offence, and then they'll run out of money, fingers crossed. The new offence of interfering with key national infrastructure such as oil refineries, airports, railways, 6 months in prison and again an unlimited fine for anyone who locks themselves onto another person, object or building. Is this a sign of the law and the government moving quickly to identify an increasingly modern threat and deal with it?
I think they're certainly updating legislation that was becoming out of date given the changing nature of protests and the more targeted, violent protests, if you like, against property and against critical national infrastructure. I don't think it would change if there was a change of government in the next couple of years, because I think the police, as you rightly say, Patrick, greatly welcome this, and that will make their job easier. So policing major events like the coronation on Saturday will be made slightly easier by this type of legislation. So I think in that sense, it's a sensible step forward. And I think, as I say, the balance between a sort of heavy-handed police state, which some protesters have argued is coming in because of this legislation, and the need to prevent violent public nuisance for people going about their lawful business and being expected as taxpayers to pay for the policing, which the police don't have the powers to do effectively. So I think it's a sensible move forward.
Absolutely. Sir Mark, thank you very much. And the way I would bracket it to these people who are intent on causing a nuisance is this: look, we're actually saving you from yourselves, because the patience of the British public is going to run out very, very soon. In fact, in many other countries, they would have been run over with cars by now. People would have filled them in completely. You don't really get that in this country. And I think it is actually, the patience is being tested to the max. And I think if they rocked up and tried to disrupt the coronation, then they might find out which side the British people's bread is buttered on. But there we go.